All right, the next item that does require committee action is repositioning of trespassing signs to apply to the terrace of the east entrance of MLK Jr. Boulevard doors of the city-county building. Okay, just wanted to be sure that all committee members know that what's before us is this sign right now is it's inward, and the proposal before us is having it face outward.
Can you hold that one more time just for a second?
How about if I just read it to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I want a picture.
It says, welcome to the City County Building. It's open Monday to Friday at 6 a.m., closed Monday through Friday at 6 p.m., or after all meetings open to the public are adjourned, weekends and holidays. There's what's prohibited: no firearms or weapons are permitted in the City County Building. Violators are considered trespassers and are subject to forfeiture or arrest, citing City of Madison General Ordinance, Section 2359. Smoking is prohibited inside the City County Building. Smoking outside the entrance is restricted to the public sidewalk. City of Madison General Ordinance, Section 2305. It is unlawful for any person to enter or remain on any property of another, or to enter or remain in any building of another after having been notified by the owner or occupant not to enter or remain on such premises. Any violator is subject to a penalty of not less than $50, nor more than $300 plus costs. City of Madison General Ordinance, Section 23.07, subparagraph 2. Violation of any of these rules can lead to the penalty or arrest by Madison Police. Okay, any questions about? Any questions on the signs or what's being proposed? And again, then the decision before us is whether or not to approve allowing the signs to face outward. Supervisor Matano. Yes, please. Anything you want to say?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We can have a motion or I'll open to discussion about what's before us.
Would you want to put a motion for us to be?
I don't have a positive one, so
Okay.
you have one.
I'll move denial, and I'll speak to that.
I'll second it.
I, like others in the room, I spend a lot of time in this building. I'm a part-time employee of Dane County, having been elected to represent District 11 in calendar year 2000. I walk by the homeless people every day I come through the building, and it's been spoken about you should speak to the homeless people and get to know them, and I actually don't, because I sort of have a sense of respecting their privacy. But what I would say, what I say in my head is, I'm glad you're here. We should do better for you. We need to do more. And we're talking currently about a day shelter, and we've had certain discussions about where that should go and how much we should spend. But the day shelter would be an important piece in the puzzle. It would provide people a place to go during the day. It would provide an opportunity for social workers and the like to get to know the homeless folks and learn their needs, perhaps connect them with veterans benefits or Social Security disability benefits, help them get on their feet, learn what it would take to get them on their feet. But what we haven't even any proposal before us is to provide a place for people to sleep. And so the city-county building steps has become the sleeping place of last resort. It's a bad last resort, admittedly so. So earlier this year, Dan Lowndes came forth with a behavior policy and presented it in a very sensitive way, indicated that he wanted to address behavior, not individuals. I appreciate that, and I'd certainly be in favor of having the sign face outward if the import of that was to apply the behavior policy to those on the grounds and not just those inside the building. Certainly that behavior policy has proved sensitive, sensible. It addresses the issues of behavior. That's what's needed. The porta potty has gotten a lot of rave reviews. It's kind of sad when one porta potty is a triumph, but
See what it is.
in our bureaucratic world it is. And I'd support a half dozen more in the next budget if we could. Our expenditures are limited. We can spend a lot of money in capital expenditures. We're greatly limited by the state levy limit in terms of operating expenses. For years I've been voting when it came before us for an automobile license fee because that appears to be the only option allowed to us under state statutes to improve human services. Parking ramps are available. I've thought of that as a potential camping spot. And one unsaid thing, and part of why the burden has fallen on the county in this building, is the Capitol grounds. The Capitol grounds used to be a place where homeless people slept, but that, since the election of our current governor, has become hostile territory. So, in deference to all those who complained about the situation before us, it's true. You know, the burden on this building is greater than ever before, in large measure because the Capitol grounds have become off limits to humans generally. So with that, I'll be voting yes. Now the motion is for denial.
When we made the motion, yeah.
And oppose the policy to evict the homeless.
Supervisor Nelson?
Do I need to get close to the microphone then?
People to hear you.
Okay. I'm a first-time supervisor, and when I looked at Friday's, on the agenda at Friday, I thought, oh, this meeting could be pretty quick. I wasn't really sure what item F had to do with until I read the article in the State Journal on Saturday. And I was quite troubled by that, because to me, it really, to vote in favor of the original motion, not Supervisor MATANO's motion to deny, really seemed to me just to push people away, and it wasn't a problem-solving kind of solution. So what I did is I thought, well, what are other communities, municipalities doing in this area? And I came across a document called Homeless Encampments on Public Right-of-Way, a Planning and Best Practice Guide. It was done by the Center for Urban Studies at Portland State University in Oregon. And it deals mostly at the statewide level with departments of transportation. So it's mostly about bridges and rest areas and highways. But I thought some of the information in here really applies to what you have been talking to us about this evening. And one of the things they mentioned is 6 principles of working with homeless issues and really working together, not just with law enforcement and social service agencies, and I guess we could say elected officials. But one of the principles really resonated with me, and it says, moving homeless individuals from one site to the next through the use of law enforcement and physical barriers alone is costly, doesn't solve the problem, and tends to generate hostility and further desperation among those being moved. And I think from your testimony this evening, that really sort of illustrates what this principle is. So as soon as I read this and looked at some of the other information, I just really felt that what we're looking at here is not a problem-solving approach. What it does is just shift the problem elsewhere. And let me give you an example that's not exactly, it's not apples to apples, but I was director at the Middleton Public Library for 22 years. And we worked very closely with Madison, and when Madison would ban someone from their library, say the Central Library, it wasn't just the Central Library, it was all the branches. But what I found at Middleton, and what the director at the Monona Public Library found, is that those people, and when I'm talking about banned, these are people who have inappropriate behaviors, and inappropriate behaviors in libraries, I know this from 30 years, it goes beyond just it involves all ages, all incomes, all circumstances. So those problems would filter out to our location. So in other words, they didn't go away, they just went elsewhere. And it seems to me what we're doing here is not just banning the people who are causing problems, but in a library situation, just banning those people who happen to be in that same area at the same time, the people who are really trying to help make things better. So from the start, I really felt that I could not support the original motion, but I definitely will be supporting Supervisor Matano's motion to deny.
Just for clarification, there's actually only one motion on the
What's
floor.
that?
There's
Oh.
just one motion on the floor.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, but I
It's
mean,
just a
the way,
topic.
yeah, okay, sorry.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank
And
you.
thank you.
thank you. Go ahead, Alder Resnick.
I'll jump in, as everybody else has more eloquently stated, we're just pushing the problem around. Now it's not, this solution, if it's not going to be the city-county solution, it's going to be someone else's, probably someone on State Street, but I can point out the other areas and the other shop owners that this would impact. It's not like there's any place else for someone to go. If there were other resources, this might be a different conversation. But at this point, we don't have the housing stock that's necessary to have a solution-based policy that I think we'd actually be proud of. This is about behavior in the end. It's about enforcing behavior. And I do hope that the community that is outside and they see public urination, they see the behaviors that we're talking about, can encourage individuals that this is why we did put forward a porta potty. This is why we did start to respond to some of those needs. So with that, I'm glad the motion is to deny.
I work in this building. I've worked here for 18 years or more. I see and I'm aware of the homeless people who are around. I speak to them. Most of them are friendly, and I respect them. And I understand that homelessness is an issue that's bigger than the city and the county. It's a community-wide issue that has to be addressed from a community stand. That involves the private sector, the faith community, as well as government. And yes, we need to do more to provide permanent housing. I've researched the Housing First strategy, and it's seen as the most effective strategy to address homelessness, and it says that people have a right to homes. But there are services out there are resources out there, and through the testimony that we've heard, a lot of people choose not to use them. They choose not to accept them. They choose not to go to the shelter for whatever reason, and that is their right. But what about the rights of the people who live in this building, who work and do business in this building? And since I've been back, I know no one sits outside, no one who works here, who is aware, sits out in front of this building. And if they do, they don't do it for long. Because of the odors, because of the substances that make them wary of sitting out there, or the smells. And it's not about the homeless people, because we've sat with them for years, but things have changed. And it is an unsanitary condition out there in front of this building. The workers can't open their windows because of the smells. They can't go out and sit in front of their building on a break or lunch hour. I've done some research, as Supervisor Nelson has, and I have found no unsupervised or unstructured homeless encampment that hasn't resulted in crime or violence and the vulnerable people being preyed on. And that's what we're setting up here, is a system. We're enabling people who are predatory to prey upon people who, for their own personal reasons, will not accept resources that are available, not to go to a shelter, and are not seeking permanent housing. I've heard maybe one person who testified who talked about permanent housing. The others talked about more shelter days, more shelter space, and more resources that will help them maintain homelessness. So that's something that has to be addressed and thought of as well. That's what there's involuntary homelessness, and then there's voluntary homelessness. And some people choose to be homeless voluntarily. So that also has to be considered when you make your decision. So the question in my mind is, what is acceptable behavior and conditions in public places? And that's the decision that we have to make. Is it acceptable to have 40 people sleeping on the steps of our city county building? Is it acceptable to have people who choose not to follow our laws regarding health and safety of others? Those are decisions that we have to make. Thank you.
A couple of years ago, when the issue of homeless people utilizing the CCB as a de facto shelter came to the attention of the county executive, it was mentioned that maybe a policy should be adopted to institute a kind of a blanket ban on people who are in the building but had no business being in the building, no official business. And that was something that he couldn't go for, and said if anything will be done in regard to people in the city-county building, it will have to be a behavioral-based policy. And we now have one for the hours of typical building operation that are enforced by Dan Long. We cannot, however, practically speaking, have a behavioral-based policy outside after hours. The police won't enforce our internal rules. So our options are somewhat limited in terms of enforcement mechanisms. It's either a trespassing sign that would impose trespassing, or we could do what we've done, and that is provide a porta potty and also let people know who are utilizing the front steps of this building that there's a responsibility that comes with that. It's not as if the behavior that has been going on outside this building is acceptable. It's not, and people have testified to that effect. People who live out there have testified to that effect. And so I think people who utilize it have to understand that there's a responsibility. And behavior out there needs to improve, or else we're probably going to be back here discussing the same issue, maybe a different outcome on this vote. So I think I know where the votes lie tonight, but we have a porta potty out there now. There should be no excuse for urine or feces, and the people who utilize the area outside have to take responsibility for cleaning up. And that just has to be the case. It's unfair to the people who work here in the offices, and the people who are on our janitorial staff. So that has to change. So I think I know how this is going to go tonight, and we just need to ensure that conditions outside this building improve.
Thank you, because we wouldn't have this conversation tonight if it wasn't for what I hear tonight is the few people who have crossed the line, and then everyone faces the consequences potentially. So it is why this was brought to us tonight. And we heard the testimony of people's behavior that is disruptive. My concern is the behavior of people who are potentially harmful to others. And that includes the people who, for whatever reason, have chosen to sleep or otherwise occupy the front of the city-county building. So again, I want to emphasize, I heard tonight that there are people that recognize that there are a few people who have created a situation where we have this on our agenda tonight. Again, to just emphasize, that behavior has to be addressed, and I think everyone's well aware that it is likely to be addressed with police responding if there's a fight or other illegal activity. I was also at the Mental Health Homeless Summit at the Veterans Administration last Monday, and Mayor Southlin was the guest speaker, one of the guest speakers. And one of the things he said, and it's a story that he told, he said he was at the art fair and then he walked over here to this building and was talking to a person who was homeless, who said that, and I'm just saying what the story the mayor told, that the person that he described as homeless said that the porta potty was a failure. And the reason it was a failure is because some people are using it as a place to get their meth. And so that's, if that indeed is happening, that's not okay. Again, that will make it bad for everyone else. I hear the chatter, so I'm just saying the story that was told. And that, again, for something to be effective, everyone has to be a part of making sure that it works. And if indeed that's happening, I hear the self-policing to use the porta potty for what it's been designed to be used for, and not the outside the building. That's what's before us tonight. Again, we have a motion then to deny the repositioning of the signs. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you.
Good to go.